Welcome to Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast. These are the stories of those who have received, given, and who are waiting for the gift of life, organ transplantation. Now here's your host and heart and kidney recipient, BJ Odom.
Welcome to the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast, where we explore the extraordinary world of organ transplantation. I'm your host, BJ Odom. Each week we share inspiring stories and introduce you to remarkable individuals sharing their own transplant stories. Be sure to support the podcast by leaving a 5-star review and subscribing on your preferred podcast platform. Have a transplant story to share or comments about the podcast? Love to hear from you at giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast, as we welcome you to episode 75. Today, we're sharing the story of Lisa Vecchione, a heart transplant survivor whose journey is filled with both struggle and grace. Back in junior high, a heart murmur may have been the first sign something wasn't quite right. But it wasn't till years later, while working as a barista and suddenly feeling ill, that Lisa learned her heart was failing faster than she could ever imagine. Her path of transplantation was difficult, but it brought her to the moment that forever changed her life, the day she received a new heart, and perhaps even more powerful, the day she met her donor family and gave them a chance to hear their loved one's heartbeat still alive inside her. This is a story of hope, gratitude, and the extraordinary connection made possible through the gift of life. Stay with us. You won't want to miss Lisa's incredible journey. We'll hear Lisa's story all coming up next. Got Lisa with us today. I'm so excited to hear her story. But before we do, Lisa, let us hear just a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Lisa Vecchione, and I've spent my whole life in New Jersey. I had hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and I was diagnosed in 2004. And I was in pretty rough shape at the time. I was in massive heart failure. I was able to stay on some medication to keep me going. And then by 2021, I was doing a trial and ended up, I was in complete HCM burnout, like my heart had burnt itself out.
Okay.
So it's been quite an adventure.
Yeah. Now, so you're doing good now, though, right? I mean, that's always
fantastic.
So where did your journey begin? And now, was you just, was this a slow process? Because I've heard, from people that all of a sudden, bing, bang, it's like there. And then I've heard, well, I had these symptoms, but they said, nothing to worry about. You may have some struggles down the road. And when you hear the word down the road, people don't seem to worry about it. What was your introduction into this whole world of, heart failure and transplantation?
What's interesting is I've had symptoms my whole life. I just didn't know they were symptoms. I thought that's how everybody's heart felt when they got upset. I thought that's how everybody's heart felt. Literally, my heart felt like jello. At times, like especially if I got upset or stressed, it would literally be beating and just trying to push and pump so hard, it felt like jello to me. And I didn't know it any differently. Like in gym class in, I would say 7th grade, they came out with the presidential where you had to run a mile, and I couldn't run the mile. And I was very fit and I couldn't run the mile. And the gym teachers were like, all over, like, hey, this is presidential fitness. You have to, it's a requirement. I'm like, why can't I just walk it? And I would start hyperventilating and I couldn't catch my breath. I would literally have to take my gym shirt, put it over my mouth. And it came to the point where my father went in and was like, my daughter's walking from now on. She can't do it. But why my father and mother did not think to take me to the doctor, we don't know, because my father had heart problems. But for some reason, it never clicked. And a more interesting fact, when I was born, I had surgery 18 weeks after I was born, and the surgeon notated on the notes that I had a severe my heartbeat was wrong. I can't think the word for it now. A murmur, a severe heart murmur. And never said to my parents anything about it. Never said to follow up or anything. So I've definitely lived all my life with it. In 2004, what actually saved my life, I was working at a Starbucks and I broke my nose on the job. Somebody had changed the Velcro out to the ice machine and they didn't use industrial tape, and it came down across the bridge of my nose. And so I had to go to get it looked at. And the doctor's office said, well, you haven't had a EKG or anything since you're like 22 and you're 31 right now. Like, why don't we just do a full physical, because you're going to need surgery on your nose, so you're going to need clearances. I'm like, okay, fine, no problem. So they hook me up to the leads, do it, and the nurse changes out the leads. She changed out the leads 3 times. And she goes, I'm going to be right back. And then the doctor came in the office and he goes, Lisa, are you having any chest pain or discomfort? And I said, listen, I have got to go back to work. So we need to like wrap this up. I've been here a long time. Like, let's finish this. And he's like, so you're not having any discomfort? I'm like, my nose is killing me, but I got to go. And he goes, well, here's your 2 options. He's like, either you're currently having a heart attack or you have something called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. He's like, so our options are I call an ambulance right now, or I called the local cardiologist that's right down the road and I told him what's going on and I'll drive you there. He said he'll take you right now. I'm like, okay, we'll take option 2. We'll go see the cardiologist. And he was kind enough to bring me there. And I was diagnosed right there and then. And he's like, the cardiologist was like, listen, you're in really rough shape. He's like, we've got to get you on medication and you cannot have any stress anymore. And mind you, I was working 3 jobs and going through college because I decided at 26, I wanted a change of careers. So it definitely hit me hard.
Now, you know what I would say, because I was sickly as a child also with heart problems. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking it was a little bit different with you because my parents did know that I had heart problems. And, they were even told I would never live to see, 13, 14 years old and boom, I would be gone, which I can only imagine, what they must have went through. But I was so sick my entire life, it became my normal. And I'm thinking this is probably, it became your normal. And that's why you weren't concerned and you weren't worried about it because you never knew how sick you were.
Correct. Had no clue. I mean, literally in the doctor's office, when he said, I'm not even going to tell you what hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is. I don't want you to look on Google because Dr. Google is going to freak you out. And he's like, don't look at it. He's like, let's get you on medication. In 2 weeks, we'll talk about it. I'm like, listen, I'm going home and I'm going to search it immediately. So you're better off just telling me. And he's like, no, absolutely not. Don't do it. Which, of course, I went home and looked it up. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't sound very good. Mind you, I'm now like, hey, my dad's been having heart attacks, massive heart attacks since he's in his 30s. And I'm 31 right now. Could this be correlated at all? So here I am, I'm searching online and I see the Hypertrophic Cardiomyopathy Association and it's based out of Denville, New Jersey. And I'm like, let me just reach out. So I reach out and I get Lisa Solberg, who's the head of it. And I start telling her everything that's going on. And she's like, your father really sounds like he has, they call it HCM for short, HCM as well. And he's been misdiagnosed. So we end up going through, all the different family history, which pretty much everybody on my father's side by 60 passed away or died younger. And I even had a cousin of mine, a first cousin on my dad's side that died right before he turned 21 years old. And she's like, we have to kind of take this seriously and get you in with an HCM specialist. She's like, because I think you really need to have a pacemaker, defibrillator put in. And I'm like, okay, so honestly, the HCMA helped save my life because at first nobody was telling me anything. And when I found them online, they helped save my life.
Oh, wow. So, and this is, because I've had a few of these cases on, the gift of life prior. So basically this is hereditary, right?
It can be, yeah. There's different forms of it. What's interesting is my father had 8 children. I'm second born of his first set of children. I'm the only one that has it currently, which, well, I don't have it anymore since the heart transplant, but everybody's supposed to get tested of the adults, children in my family every 3 to 5 years. And so far, thank God, nobody has shown signs.
Well, that's good then.
Yes. And the children all have to be monitored as well. They're supposed to be yearly, but unfortunately, my family doesn't take it as seriously as they should.
Now, you find this out, and now how long is the process before we're actually, diagnosed? And then, of course, when did you get the word that you're going to really need a heart transplant?
Well, it's funny. So I got diagnosed June of 2004. And Lisa had said to me, I'm really good at reading things. She says, and I hate to say this to you, but I think you're the type of person that could take it on the chin and handle it. She goes, I think you might go the path of needing a transplant. And I said, okay. And I'd known her for a few months at this point. She's like, I just looking at I think that's the direction you're going to go. And she says, and I like to be upfront with people if I know they can handle it. And I said, no, I'd rather know that than not. And I'm like, so I said to her, I'm like, hey, listen, never going to get one. It's okay. Never going to get one. And literally my boyfriend then, my very long time boyfriend, he said to me, with this diagnosis, we've got to get married. And I'm like, no, we've been good. It's not, it's not a must do. And I said, we're not going to just get married because I'm sick. And he said, no, we're getting married. Let's go get married tomorrow. I want to make sure you have really good health insurance. And we had always talked about maybe doing a costume ball, a Halloween costume ball, and getting married on Mischief Night. Well, a lot of people wouldn't know Mischief Night, the day before Halloween. In New Jersey, Mischief Night is very big, where you pull pranks on people. And so I said to him, well, if we're going to get married, it's June right now. We'll decide once I get stable. And in August is when I started to stabilize. And I said, okay, we'll get married in October. We'll get married on Mischief Night. But I'm planning the wedding. I'm not going to a Justice of the Peace. We're going to do a real wedding. So I actually threw in getting married while getting diagnosed with HCM and being in heart failure. It was pretty exciting.
I was going to say I'm a go-getter, but I don't think I'm that much of a go-getter.
3 months to plan a wedding for 164 guests, and it worked out. It came together beautifully. So, which was impressive. I mean, I danced the dance with my father, with my husband, and then I was done dancing for the rest of the evening because I was still really bad. And being on the new medication was very fatiguing to me in the beginning.
Okay, so now you're married and life is moving on. Obviously, it wasn't, right after marriage.
Correct.
I
know. Well, I know what angina is now, and now I realize I've been living with angina for many, many years. I always thought it was like maybe a panic attack, even though I'm not a panicker. So now they're trying to get like the angina, at least to get comfortable. But unfortunately, I lived with angina pretty much 24/7. So the doctor ended up saying to me, listen, like, you really don't need stress. He's like, I was getting ready to start my master's program, and I was going to do a master's over the summer. It was 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. And he's like, you can't do that. He's like, that's too much stress. He's like, put that on hold for right now. And let's just focus on getting you well. And I really do think getting married to my husband helped me. His heart started beating for mine and picking up a lot of the stress for me, even though he can be my stress as well. But it definitely got me on the road where I could handle doing things somewhat. So I did stop working, and then I had finished my college degree by that point. And so I started substitute teaching because I had gotten my degree in education. And I can't say anything bad. I taught in the school system that I was raised through, and they accommodated me so much. They were fantastic to me with letting me substitute and just as I got sicker, they'd be like, we're kids nowadays, they'll change classroom. They don't change classrooms anymore. The teachers change classrooms and come to a classroom. So they changed it back for me and were like, no, you stay in the classroom. We're going to have the kids come to you, because they could see I couldn't do the stairs anymore. I was getting more and more out of breath and fatigued. But at least I got to do, work in the teaching field and loved doing it.
Now, at this point, did you have the pacemaker defibrillator yet, or
yes,
is that okay?
Yes. So I got under Lisa's advice, on Lisa Salzberg advice, she had said to me, I really think you're going to need a dual chamber. So I had a Medtronic pacemaker defibrillator installed, which towards the end, I ended up being 80% dependent on the pacemaker. So I was very appreciative that she had told me to go that route. If I had just done the defibrillator, I would have ended up having to change out again. And so I'm glad that I followed that path that she had sent me on with it. And mine had never fired off. I would feel, I was very in touch with how I was feeling. And I knew when I was going south that I could stop myself, sit down. I did a lot of praying and just getting myself peaceful and calm to try and bring my heart rate down. And because sometimes it would just hit, my blood pressure would go 200 over 100 for no reason. And all of a sudden you would see me dripping sweat and where I'm almost ready to pass out. And I would have to, my husband would be like, okay, you're not right. I can see your colors. And I would try and, muscle through it. And then I'd be like, all right, I just got to sit here. I got to chill out. I got to relax because I don't want to get jumped. I don't want it to hit me. So I would work myself out of it.
You know what? You were one of the very few. And I have to say that I was one of those few too. I had the, defibrillator pacemaker and it never went off. But I have talked to very, very few people, if any, besides myself, where that is the case. And so that was your case also. It never.
Yes.
Wow. We're two of the lucky ones.
Absolutely. What's amazing about it is when I came out of transplant and I had the 3 little copper wires out and they said, well, you have an external pacemaker. I'm like, you took my pacemaker defibrillator away? They're like, well, you don't need it anymore. And I'm like, but that's like an angel on my shoulder. Couldn't you have just left it in? They're like, no, kind of, we took your heart out. So it went with that. And I'm like, are we going to put one back in? They're like, you don't need one. You're good. And that was very hard for me to digest. And it's funny because you and I haven't been shocked, but so many people that I've talked to that have been shocked, they're like, you never would have asked for that pacemaker defibrillator back if you had been shocked. You would have absolutely have never wanted that back in your body.
Now, one of the worst stories I ever heard is a gentleman I know. I'll give you his name even, Mike Terry, close friend of mine, who also had a heart transplant just before mine. And he was one of those gentlemen that it kind of malfunctioned. And so he lived in Fort Myers, which is about 3 hours away from Tampa. And his wife was taking him to Tampa. And about every 15 to 20 minutes, the thing was just going off. And he said was the longest ride of his life. But it was a malfunction. It was nothing that was going on with him. It was actually a malfunction. And I always go, oh man, I'm glad I never got that one. But that had to be. I'm
surprised they didn't just hold a magnet over his chest. Since it wasn't a necessary hit that he was getting, just hold a magnet over while they were driving.
Yeah, I never asked him about that, but next time I talk to him, I will be talking. and I will say this, I'm 22 years out and he's about 5 months ahead of me. So he kind of became my heart buddy through this whole process. And, so I feel very fortunate that him and I both now are going on right around the corner. If he's not hit it yet, 23 years now. So those are amazing.
God bless
numbers.
You both. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. See, for me, transplant has changed my life for the best. From the moment I woke up, which I had my heart transplant, they took me on the 21st at 5:15 at night. I said to them, don't sedate me. I want to see the heart come in. And they're like, well, we're not going to let you literally see the heart. You understand that, right? And I'm like, okay, but I don't want to go to sleep. So I was in the OR. I was prepped. And literally I saw the OR room doors and they're like, okay, the heart's coming in. You're going to sleep. And they put me to sleep.
Yeah, see, I'm the opposite. As soon as I go into even a cath lab, I say, "Who's the bartender? I want the happy juice now. I'm not waiting." Of course, they got to wait
See,
till
I stay awake for everything.
Oh.
I like any biopsies, catheterizations. I stay awake. I don't take any meds or get sedated at all. And I usually joke with the surgeon. I'm like, hey, listen, you tell me you need a scalpel, I'll hand it to you. You tell me what you need, I'm your right hand.
I'm just now that's where you and we have now separated ways. I'm like, whatever, where I don't give a rat's, you know what, whatever you do, that's where I want to be. I don't want to give a rat's, hiney of what they're doing. I'd just soon be in La La Land.
I literally watch everything because they're working on a screen where they can see. And I literally, the first time I had a biopsy, I guess I'm a week out from transplant, and I had a fantastic surgeon who actually does it through your bicep, and it's like a wonderful procedure. And I'm like asking him every question, and I'm like, literally, I am like learning everything I can. I'm like, how do you know where you take tissue from? How do you know? And he's like telling me as he's doing it. So after he, everything was done and he left the room, two of the nurses said to me, you just asked him questions we've wanted to know for years and we were scared to ask. They're like, we just got educated like for 40 minutes and this was amazing. Thank you so much for asking questions. And I'm always about education. I love learning new info. So I'm like totally into like watching everything, seeing all the new stuff. I love watching all that stuff.
Now, I am the guy that, like I just said, I like the happy juice. I don't like to know what's going on. But I am the first to say, oh, we have a couple of interns here that are working on things. And one time they asked me if I minded if the intern, did the poke or whatever. And I said, no, it did kind of hurt more than normal, but I don't think they sedated me in time either. But I'm the first to say, yeah, if you can learn anything off of this old man, you are more than welcome to do so. In fact, even when I was on dialysis, because, several years after my heart transplant, the drugs took out. Not that this happens every time. I know people that have never experienced this that are out longer than I am. But there are some, of us that our kidneys didn't handle the drugs as well. So we had to have a kidney transplant. And I remember, they'd get a new tech in the dialysis unit and Sally has never done this before. This is her first stick. I go, bring her to me. I want her.
So that's awesome that you would do that. See, I allowed one time for a biopsy, someone else to scrub in on it. And I definitely did not want to have an apprentice doing it again. So you go from having like the creme de la creme to somebody that's learning, and it just wasn't for me, especially I'm awake. So
yeah, see, I don't know. I'll get the heavy edge. Maybe that's why I don't care.
It's funny, like for myself with transplant, I really honestly never thought I was going to do the transplant. I told everybody for years I wouldn't do a transplant. My husband would say to me, you're going to wake up with one, whether you like it or not. And, as COVID happened, in New Jersey, it was tremendous. The lockdowns here, it was crazy. And so we didn't go anywhere. We stayed home and we just tried to keep safe. And even church, we were doing it online as Zoom, and we just stayed together all the time. And my husband said to me, he's like, are you getting worse? And of course I lied to him. And I'm like, definitely not. Absolutely not. 2 days before I got the call for my heart, I just thought I was going to pass in the night and go peacefully and everything would be okay for everyone. And so 2 days before he said to me, are you getting worse? And I'm like, no, definitely not. I'm good. And so we actually got the call on Father's Day, which is crazy because we had my father-in-law with us and my mother, and we were driving to take him and my husband out to celebrate. And we never, all four of us are together that often. And here we're driving down the road and I see a New York number pop up on my screen, which you're supposed to answer any phone call. And so my first reaction is like, hey, Doc, why aren't you home with your kid? And he's like, are you driving? I hear the car. Are you driving? And I'm like, no, Chris is driving. We're just going out to eat. And he's like, pull over. So I'm like, all right, Dr. Goldberg, we'll pull over. So we pull over and he's like, we have a heart for you. So of course I like to ask questions, as I'm sure you can tell. So I start, okay, what do you know about it? What do you, and I'm so just drilling everything. And I'm like, he's like, okay. He's like, so have you decided if you'll take it? I'm like, yes, I'm willing to take it. So at that moment, it was real for me. Like, and so I hang up from the call. My mom's got my hand. Him and his dad are like very, very upset. And I'm like, okay, let's go eat. And my husband's like, I can't eat. My father was like, we are not eating. We're going home. And I'm like, they told me they'll call me later tonight. I'm like, I could eat. I'm hungry. And my husband's like, I cannot eat. Like, I don't even know if I could drive right now. And I'm like, well, I'll drive if we have to. And he's like, no. He's like, just give me a couple moments to digest this. So we got home and I still didn't get to eat.
And then you had to go have hospital food.
Yep. Well, they didn't know exactly what time, and because it was Father's Day, which it shows how good God is. Like, he gave this child of his a heart for Father's Day. And they said to me, because we don't know the situation of your donor, a lot of families won't make the call on a holiday. So it'll most likely be the next day. And I said, okay, that's fine. So, Father's Day was the 19th. So the 20th, they took me at 5:15 at night. And I'm a very calm person and I lean on the Lord for everything. The doctor had asked me that night, he said, Lisa, how's your husband with tubes and things like that? I said, he's not good. He feels the emotional pain for me. And he said, okay, so I'm going to tell him not to come till like 12 o'clock after we do the surgery. This way, a lot more tubes will be off you. And I said, okay. So my husband leaves that night at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I said, listen, you don't have to come back tomorrow. I'll just call you and we'll talk on the phone. And he's like, no, I'm going to come back. And I'm like, no, you don't need to. Stay home, do things you need to do. You're not going to take me till like 5:15 in the evening. So why have to drive New Jersey, New York traffic? And so all the nurses kept saying to me, you're not letting your husband come back? And they're like, you're going to be fine. I'm like, I'm sitting on the peace of the Lord. I'm good. And I just sat in my room, watched TV, talked on the phone with people. And like a couple of the nurses were like, you're not stressed out? And I'm like, no. They're like, do you need some? I'm like, no, I'm good. So literally they came at 5:15 to take me. We're going down. They're like, do you want some medication? I'm like, no, give me nothing yet. I want to see everything. Wait till the very last minute. So I, had the surgery. It was like 7.5 hours long. I woke up at 7:30 in the morning, fully intubated. And I gave the nurse a signal. I wanted it pulled. She asked me, could I wait? And I said, gave her the absolute not. So she said, just give me 1 second to get another nurse in here. They pulled it. I'm like, can I get out of bed? And she's like, absolutely not. And I'm like, there's a chair right there. I could go sit in that chair. And she's like, Lisa, there's a lot of tubing everywhere. You're not getting out of bed right now. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I call my husband and he's like asleep. And he's like, is this real? You're awake? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, listen, doctor said you can't come till after 12, but I'm awake. Everything's good. You could go back to sleep if you want, but I'm good. And then I just started calling whoever else on my list, a family, and they're all like, how are you awake? You just had a heart transplant. I'm like, no, I'm really good. So 5:30 that night, my surgeon came in after he got some sleep and he's like, how's things going, beautiful? I'm like, great, but they won't let me get out of bed. He's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, see that chair? I want to sit in it. So he says, come on, Chris, let's move her over to the chair. And so they moved whatever boxes and tubing that they had to move and got me in the chair. And the nurse came in because she had left me with the doctor. She comes in, she's like, Chris, you did not move her. He goes, no, me and the surgeon did. Right? And she goes, surgeons don't do that. He goes, well, he did. And so from that point on, for 5 days, I didn't sleep. I was wide awake. I was like singing. At one point, I was singing like worship songs. And the nurse came in. She goes, Lisa, I love your voice. I love what you're doing. But this is the ICU. She's like, so there's a lot of really sick people here. I'm just going to close your door a little more. Because it was like probably 2 o'clock in the morning.
Well, the only thing I remember after my surgery is because they told my wife the same thing, not to worry about coming in until afternoon at least. I had mine late on a Sunday night. And I remember because I was doing morning radio at the time, although I wasn't, because they had me stop doing morning radio for like 2 months before my transplant. But my old morning radio partner was still on the air. And I called him up the next morning and said, hey, I have my transplant. I should be back, in the next, several weeks. And everybody, was applauding and all the listeners were calling in. And then, of course, program director came in and yelled at my former morning partner because they'd already replaced us and they were supposed to be starting the next week. And here he put me on the air to celebrate my heart transplant. And then they, had to tell all the listeners, well, there's a new morning show starting on Monday. And that became let's just say a nightmare for the company. But it worked out in the long run. I got a company across town hire me like about 8 weeks later when they told me I could go back to work.
So you went right back to work then. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, I'm a guy that tells jokes. I remember when they told me, because they told me pretty much what they told you. You need to stop working. You need to stop doing everything. And I go, you don't get it. I just sit there and talk on the radio. I stand on stages and tell jokes. I don't really work. And they said, no, you're not going to do anything until we get you the heart.
See, that's been the hardest thing for me. Like, I want to set goals now, whereas prior I had stopped setting any goals. I just wanted to make it to the next day and be with my family. And now I can actually make plans. And the hardest thing for me, both of my degrees that I have a degree in cosmetology, which I worked at for 20 years. And then I have my degree in education. They're all up in people's faces. Yeah. So now I have to rethink career-wise. Plus, unfortunately, I have psoriatic arthritis. So I have a lot of body pains. And so I've got to figure out a job where I could sit comfortably and not be in people's faces and not, if I have a bad day, not have to go in. Mm-hmm. But my heart has been fantastic for me. And I wrote a letter literally 2 weeks out from having my heart transplant because I was really mentally stable. So my team had said I could. And I just kept writing letters. And then at almost the 2-year mark, April of 24, I was reached out from my donor's mother. She actually, I started to tell you this the other day, they got my letters and they saw that they were almost 2 years old and they were freaking out because they didn't want me to think that they hated me and that they hadn't responded, but they came very late to them. And so she actually was like, I remember in the charts, they said the heart went to New York. So I'm going to try and call the OPOs in New York. And she said to herself, okay, I'm going to start with New York City because I think they have a really good transplant program there. So, which is Live on New York. So she called there and they're like, as a donor parent, you can't contact us. It's privacy issues. She's like, well, what if she's in your system? And so they said, well, we can't tell you if she is or isn't, but you can send us a letter. And she said, well, can't we do something faster? They're like, well, you could shoot us an email. So they gave her an email address and then immediately contacted NYU. And then NYU called me and they're like, we have a slight problem though. She gave all her information. I'm like, that's great. I'm fine. They're like, but the problem is New York and New Jersey, you can't give all your information. And I'm like, but she's not in New York or New Jersey, right? And they're like, correct. So I ended up signing 10 pages. I had to take a picture of myself signing the pages and give it to them. It was almost like I signed my life away. So once they got that, then they sent it to Live on New York, and then Live on New York reached out to me. And probably 15 minutes on the phone, the lady was the nicest person. And she was like, Lisa, but your donor's mother actually gave full information. I'm like, yes, that's great. I'm awesome with it. And she said, are you sure? And it's for 15 minutes, she's like, do you want to come here and we could call together? I'm like, no, it's good. Just give me the info. And she's like, I could read you the letter. I could email you the letter. I could mail you the letter. I'm like, let's do all three. You read it to me, email it to me, and, mail it to me. This way we have it. And so I immediately, not even looking at the time, I just immediately dialed my donor's mom, whose name is Jessica. I dialed her immediately, which the phone went to voicemail. And I look at my watch. I'm like, oh, it's 4:30. She's probably at work still. And then about 10 minutes later, I get a call and she's like, I'm so sorry. She's like, I was getting my nails done. I told the girl she had to stop and I left. And I'm like, oh, wow. So we had like the most magnificent conversation. I found out, my donor's name is Michael J. Canada, and just a good man. He has a son, Michael, and a stepdaughter, Adriana, and his daughter, Aaliyah, like 3 beautiful kids. And, I can't ask for a better donor family. So I talked with Jessica probably an hour. Then she said, my mom is going to want to talk to you too. And I'm like, that's all right. So her mom and I talked. We probably spoke an hour and a half. And then she said to me, Michael's daughter's mom is really going to want to speak to you too. I'm like, that's fine. And then Jaleesa, myself, and the girls talked probably for an hour. And we just I had an instant connection and love for this family. And we officially got to meet July of 2024. We officially met. Michael's mother, the 2 girls, and their mom, they took a drive down to New Jersey. We were originally going to go up to Boston, but the Celtics won. So Boston was all crazy. And so they came here and they met me actually in the sharing network of New Jersey, because I figured that it might be overwhelming for the girls because they're young. And they have this beautiful garden in the back, and it's like 4 donors, families. And it's I can't think what they call it. It's like a peaceful garden. There's a certain name they call it, and I can't think what it's called. And it's got a little waterfall in it, and it's just benches for people to sit and think of their loved ones. So I couldn't think of a better place for them to meet me, which ended up working out beautifully. The sharing network literally set up a photographer to come, so this way I could be in the moment. I took the most beautiful pictures, and they were able to listen to my heart, Michael's heart. And his grandmother wasn't feeling well enough to do the drive. So she videoed in for, getting to watch them, listen to my heart. And then I was asked to speak at the HCMA convention that happened to be in Boston that October. So then I went in October and I met Michael Jr.'s mom then, and Michael's sister, Brianna. And then I met Noni, Michael's grandmother. And it was funny. We're waiting to go in, and Lisa Sahlberg's telling a little detail. And Noni whips out her stethoscope. She goes, I have to hear Michael's heart. I can't wait anymore. And she goes, is it okay, Lisa? And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. So I just shove it down my shirt, and she's listening to my heart. And all of a sudden, Lisa, she was talking to the group, and she looks our direction and she starts crying. And she's like, I got to take a break for a second, because it threw her for a second. And what was amazing is there was a photographer standing right there, and he just snapped a shot of Noni hearing Michael's heart for the first time. So it was just such a beautiful moment.
Now,
and I've gotten such privilege of being with my donor's family.
Now, I've got to ask you, because I've had a donor mother on before. I've had a couple donor mothers. And I asked them how it felt the first time they heard their heart, their son's heart beating, another human being. So I got that side. Now,
Jessica lost words. She couldn't express. She was crying. She lost words, and it was almost overwhelming for her.
But now, how was it for you? Because I've heard from the donor families. Now you are the recipient. How
everybody was a little nervous to do it at first. So Adriana, his stepdaughter, said to me, I'll do it first. So she did it, and it was very emotional for her. And so then she stepped away, and then Jessica listened, and it was very, it was very emotional for her. And then she stepped away, and Jaleesa, and my heart started going crazy, which Jaleesa was Michael's, ex-girlfriend, but they still loved each other. And they had a good friendship for their children and everything. And I felt my heart go boop, 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 like hard. And I said, Jaleesa, my heart's beating extra hard right now. And it was funny because I felt that extra love, so which was beautiful. But, his family is amazing. And when Noni was listening, I couldn't stop. Like, tears were just rolling. And I'm not a super emotional person, but like I could see, like, Noni she loved that boy with every ounce of her soul and literally would do anything for him. And so, like, I felt her love pouring into me when she was listening.
Now,
Like, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've known, recipients that have met donor families, and it seems like they really have bonded over the years. Is that the same with you?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. Like, I planted 2 fig trees this summer in my backyard, and I call one Audriana and one Aaliyah. Like, we're very bonded. Like, I call the girls, I talk to them, I'm always thinking of the whole family, like, all the time. Like, I'm always texting or sending messages, like they are too. And we have the most amazing connection. Like, we really do. And I volunteer for the Sharing Network of New Jersey, and they do a walk every year. So I had said to Michael's mom, Jessica, I'm like, do you think you'd want to participate in a walk? And she's like, yeah, I would love to do that. I would absolutely love to do it. So this June, Jessica came down, her mom came down, which Noni did. She got shots in her knees just to be able to do the ride down. She came down and she was going to watch and participate. And unfortunately, the kids couldn't come because it was June 8th. So school was still in session for them. And a bunch of Jessica's cousins through her stepmother live here in New Jersey. So they all came and participated in the walk as well. And like Jessica said to me, it was such an emotional trip for her being there and feeling everything. It was like overwhelming, but amazing. The love that she felt. And same with Noni. Like she said, Lisa, I came expecting like I was going to spend time with you. She was, but I never expected the love, like the Sharing Network. She's like, I can't get over how much they love everybody there and what a warm, beautiful community it is. And I kept introducing them to friends that I've made through it, and they haven't met their donor families yet. And I'm like, it's okay, you can adopt mine. And like, so introduced and gave them hugs. And it just was absolutely amazing. And one of the coolest parts of the walk was I had these stickers of Michael that I had on the caps. And for some reason they kept popping off, even though they were supposed to be like heavy duty glue. And a lady comes to us at the very end, and our team name was One Heart, Two Families. And a lady comes up and she goes, I was walking and I kept walking, and she's like, I kept feeling something, and I stop and I see there's a sticker of your donor on my foot. She's like, I'm going to keep this sticker forever. Somehow Michael took a ride with me. She's like, and I had to come tell you guys. And her husband had a transplant and has never had the honor of meeting his donor. And he has vivid dreams of her. And I said, well, hopefully you're going to meet her soon, and it was such a special day for them. The whole entire family that was there, they just could not get over how wonderfully treated donor families are and recipients are. And it just gave them such a passion to do. And I hope we'll do it every single year. For me, it's tough to walk it. I was like one of the last people to finish the finish lines. Took me quite a while, but I did it.
Now let me also ask you this, because I know we talked before we did this interview, and I think it's important for you to tell your story on this part too, because you said that it was 2 years before they even got your letter. So I think it's important for people to know that have sent letters, maybe haven't heard back, because you were consistent. You just didn't send one letter, right? And maybe people that really want to meet their donor families, maybe this is some important steps. So why don't you tell us what all you did?
I tell everybody, keep writing. Don't ever give up. The only thing I always say is I never wrote on the day that Michael passed, because that's a hard day. I wrote on Thanksgiving because that's something to be thankful for. I wrote on Valentine's Day, something to love, So I did it like on days like that I wrote. And I really feel like people need to put it out there more, because families are reaching out. They desperately want to meet, and recipients want to meet as well. But sometimes because of HIPAA rules and whatnot, things don't happen as easily. So don't ever give up. Keep doing it. Keep writing. Keep going for it. Like, I belong to a lot of support groups on Facebook, and there's so many donor families that put up, like, I lost my loved one on this date. If this correlates with anybody's date and you'd love to reach out, they're looking for you. So many of them are looking for you. So just keep writing and find out who your OPO is in your area and reach out to them and say, because usually it's done in a third party. Like, you give it to your social worker at your hospital, and then they give it to the OPO. But you can directly reach out to your OPO and say, hey, I'd like to drop off a letter in person. Hey, I'd like to get involved. And it really helps them tremendously with getting the word out and also getting involved. And they can look and see if any letters have come through, if the person has received your letter. So it's really definitely great to know who your OPO is and contact them even too.
All right. Well, as we're getting, at that time on the clock where we're going to have to split here in a few minutes, but are there any things that maybe I missed asking or you missed telling that you feel is very important in your story or in your world that you want to get out before we end things today?
Well, for myself, the biggest thing was I leaned on the Lord for everything. My church family prayed for me every single day. And every Sunday, literally, they would all surround me and lay their hands on me and pray. And it's funny, literally the day that I got my call, it was some commotion had happened. Church started late. And my husband said midway through service, he goes, they didn't pray on you. And I said, it's okay, sweetheart. It's okay. They pray for me. It's okay. And he laid his hands on me and he prayed the most beautiful, genuine prayer of like, Lord, please, she's getting sicker. She really needs this heart. Please provide. And for me to get the call that day, I know the Lord heard me and I know the Lord saved me and I know I'm here for a purpose. And that's why I'm always talking to people. And that's another thing. Don't keep silent that you've had a transplant. Tell people, talk to people, because that helps save other people's lives because they then sign up to be donors as well. And I'm just a huge advocate for pushing towards being an ambassador for UNOS, being an ambassador for your local OPO, anything that you can get education out there to teach people that donation saves lives. I wouldn't be alive without Michael's family, his mom signing that line saying, yes, my boy can save other people. And Michael signed, Michael, I got his heart, and 2 other men in Massachusetts got his kidneys, which they would love to meet them. They haven't heard anything from them, but they're hoping and praying. Noni desperately wants to meet them. So if you're out there and you're listening and you received kidneys, in 2022 of June, Noni wants to know you.
Well, I tell you what, I appreciate you so much for sharing your story. And like I said, that's kind of why I started this podcast. Awareness is so important, and that's what we do each and every week here. And I appreciate you for sharing.
I appreciate you very much for doing this.
Be sure to join us each week for a new heartfelt episode. And if you have a transplant story, please email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that is giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and don't forget to like and share this episode with family and friends. We'd also appreciate that 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Another podcast you might enjoy is myself and former morning radio partner, Bill Stevens. BJ and Bill, the podcast, all on the Podcast Playground Network, as we would like to thank them for making this podcast possible. Until next time, I'm BJ Odom. Thank you so much for being a part of our journey and reminding us all to appreciate each and every day and to treasure the extraordinary gift of life.
He was running on empty, heart fading fast. Doctor said, man, you ain't gonna last. But a stranger's kindness, a gift so true, turned the night sky into something new. He got a second chance, he got a brand new spark. like a freight train rolling back from the dark. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. "15 years later, the road got rough. The fight ain't over when the climb is tough. Needed a kidney, the race was on. Another hero stepped up, kept him strong. Every breath he takes is a tale of hope. One life saved, another can cope. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. Doctor's hands, a donor's grace, running on down to a brand new place. Second chances don't come twice, but when they do, man, they feel so nice. So let's spread the word, let the people know. One yesterday lets a miracle grow. You don't need wings just to save a man, just a little love, a helping hand. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. BJ still rocking, still standing tall, thanks to the ones who gave it all. Gift of life, hear the sound. Pass it on, pass it down. The Gift of Life podcast, hosted by BJ Odom. Listen now.